And if you'll come over here, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that you notice about your walk that you want to share?
My walk feels very like spirally.
Yeah, great. And if you don't mind, if you'll close your eyes, and just notice if an image comes to mind. Anything specific. You don't need to share it with me. I'm just going to ask you to let it come to you, and then we'll check in at the end. Will you, which Cass has is it a shoulder? It's just right. So do you have anything that you think I shouldn't do? Cass is dealing with a neck injury, so is there anything I shouldn't do while we're down here? Okay. All right, will you lie down on your back, please?
This way?
It doesn't.
Okay.
So as we've talked about, I don't have a specific plan. I'm just going to listen and follow Cass. I'm going to try to narrate as much as I can, but I also want to be attentive to the work, and so I may take some pauses and hopefully you can just watch. I know that we're a little bit far away, but hopefully you can take in some things. And Sandra, maybe if you feel like there's something I need to repeat, or if you want to narrate at some point, then I'll leave that open to you, okay?
Thank you.
So I do think I'll start with our clearing on back line, and then we'll see where things go from here. One thing I think we haven't talked too much about is that every touch is intentional, and that try not to do too much swiping. And so I will take some times where I take my hands completely off the body to allow time for integration, but also so I'm not giving extra signals when I'm intuiting or thinking about where to go next. We've been doing this, or thinking about it with both legs, but I'm just going to take some time to find this on each leg.
And I notice that Kelly is in a good monkey position there. Her back is coming forward. She's not hunching over. She's keeping a long back up into the neck, keeping her shoulders relaxed as she goes.
So sometimes I hold the leg with both hands right under the knee, not on the knee. And then sometimes if Cass is doing, is giving me her weight, I'm not struggling with that. But sometimes when it's harder for the receiver to give weight, if you put your hand underneath their foot, then it feels a little more supported, like they're standing, and they might release into your hands a little bit more. I'm noticing that between the sides, the side that I'm on right now feels more mobile. The other side was mobile, but it felt a little bit more tense. And so I'm just noticing what I'm sensing through my hands here. Now she's released even more. I mentioned that I've done the body work on the floor a lot for when I didn't have tables. And one thing I appreciate about the floor is that there can be more width. And so that as we start to move through the lesson, if their body wants to reach out more wide, then there's an opportunity to do that without fear of toppling off the table. It just feels more secure. But also, I love being on the floor, and so I don't have much issue finding different placement of my own body to still care for it. So just acknowledging that my ease on the floor, I think, is another reason that I feel in tune to doing this in this way. So Cass was just trying to do this herself, so I'm going to give her a moment to let me do it. And that happens sometimes because if you're receiving it and you know the patterns, it's sometimes harder to let yourself be guided.
So a little bit of play with the arm before she takes it across, which we have not done before. And then notice how the head just rolls so naturally by itself along with the arm pattern. So even though Cass has a neck entry, I don't think the movement of the head that's happening now will be hurtful to her because you're not moving her head, it's moving in response to what you're doing.
Yeah, I think part of the reason that I want to play here in the joint a little bit more is because she is trying to move her arm. And so this way, especially when you take the hand under, I've noticed when I take the hand under the bicep, or that's her tricep, it's the right words. Again, it's just another way to support, and so then that comfort will bring some more release. Like we've been talking about, my whole hand is cupping her shoulder blade.
Your magnolia hand.
My magnolia hand. So then again, her head just rolled naturally, just finding the integration of the body. And that's the whole system. Her head is pretty center. There's a little bit of adjustment to the left, but it's not judging it, just saying that that's where I notice it. And so I'll, I'm going to start towards that direction where she was already leading. So I have my second fingers underneath the occiput of her head here, and my thumbs sort of towards the outside. And so from here, I can give some, a little bit of pressure underneath there, and that way she will tilt on that axis. Sorry, atlas. My words are all mixed up today. Okay. Just letting somebody in the room. Cass, would you let yourself roll over to one side or the other? Doesn't matter which side. I mean, well, we could roll this up if you need some more. How's that? Good. Sorry. So the beauty in sidelining is that you have this full view of the spine. And so I'm going to start, I think, with some head-tail connection and also some other work in the spine. I'm also gonna now take the work of the leg for her. And you will be surprised the weight of the leg. And so this is a place where I do need to continue to be aware of my own body. So Sandra was mentioning the monkey, so I can feel that length of my own spine to use my own energy and sharing of the weight, really. So I have one hand on the instep of her foot, and the other hand is just above the knee on the inside. I work a lot with dancers because that's who my students generally are. And so I find this work in the leg can be really rejuvenative, and also because many of the dancers work so much in external rotation, if they can find a way to offer an internal rotation, if that's where their leg goes, and it just gives them another option. And I'm just noticing the connection of her body here. So since she's leaning towards this easy alligator, then I can take her arm here and invite. She's not quite in that easy alligator twist yet, so I'll just let her find that. I'll let her take a rest here in a moment, but one thing we haven't gone over yet is sometimes we can guide our partner to the other side, and then sometimes we might just ask them to switch. Because of the way that this has unfolded, I'm going to try to guide her organically over rather than just give her a verbal prompt to go to the other side. Okay. Now we're going to adjust. I'm just noticing the breath in her ribs. And so I'm gonna, it seems to be inviting me to come to that space. I'm gonna just take my hands close on her rib cage here and just feel the breath with her. I'm gonna take them a little bit apart. I do have a little bit of resistance in my hands here. Invite some length and fullness in the breath.
This work with the ribs is important. Kelly, we haven't introduced it yet, and it is a major process that you can do in side lying that you can't really do in any other position. As I mentioned the other day, the ribs will move further apart and then back together like an accordion, or you can take them into diagonals and they will do just about anything. There, she's taking them into a diagonal right now, but waiting for that to come up. Although you can induce some of this movement for people, and not everyone will respond to it. So that's part of it also. It's breath, but it is the possibilities of movement in the ribs through that whole bellows. And I'm remembering that the ribs go all the way around the body. They go to the front, they go to the back, they go high and almost down to the waist. Up under the clavicle, back, behind, up and behind the scapula. The ribs are vast. And if you've ever had a broken rib or a sprained rib, you know how painful that and sensitive that area is. It takes a long, long time to heal.
You can work with the leg from the side that I'm on too. I'm trying to remember which side I was on earlier, but I think I did it from the front. So you can do it from the back too. The hold is pretty much the same. So I'm just on the inside of the thigh at the bottom of the foot. And again, just another way of accessing the joint.
This works beautifully into the lumbar spine. And I'm sure Cass is feeling the effects of this movement way up into the lumbar spine. If Kelly takes that leg, the further back she takes it, the more that lumbar will arch a bit. Even if the body rolls, the lumbar will still arch. And for most people, it feels like, oh, wow, it's the nicest arch that comes through there. Because it's not stressed, it's kind of elongated, the arch in the lower back when you take the leg back behind.
And I'm remembering, and Cass was talking to me, I'm not sure if this is when we checked in or when she arrived here, about spirals. So I'm not making spirals happen, but I'm remembering that conversation that we had, and then I'm seeing and feeling these spirals. We've got her kind of in a strange position here. I'm going to try to reorganize. So now I've somehow come to back line. So I'm going to work towards bringing her up now. And we'll come back to the head. Do you feel it a little crooked? Do you feel it straight? just gave her a few verbal cues because sometimes in the work or in a session, the person receiving might feel like they should just stay in a position they won't naturally readjust. And so just a little adjustment or a reminder that if they feel they need to shift, that they can. All I'm doing right now is just holding the head. I'm also aware that since the beginning of this lesson that Cass's breath has deepened, and then I've seen more movement happening in her belly and diaphragm. At the beginning of the lesson, the breath seemed more in the upper chest. So just something that I'm aware of as we've been working. I give one more little dance of the legs.
One question that comes up for people, you notice Kelly lifted the whole leg from the heel without offering support under the knee, and people often wonder, well, won't the knee just hyperextend? Isn't that hard on the knees? No, the leg is, for most people, extremely well organized to lift up whole, and the knee actually feels good. On occasion, you will find a person whose knees hyperextend so badly that you can notice immediately, oh, great hyperextension here. I don't think I'll do this. I'll make another choice. But as long as the leg is holding firm, it feels good to take it up into the hip joint with the leg long.
So I'm just going to take some time to match and guide. So if you can start to come into a bear crawl. And then finding your way all the way up.
Oh, beautiful matching there, Kelly. Matching the crawl, matching the bear crawl.
We'll stop back here. I think that, can you see her head? Can you see our heads?
Well, you cut off just a little.
Just a little bit. I'm going to float the head. We haven't done that much. So, sorry, that was a little side note. Here I'm going to take my thumbs back up onto the occiput and my first finger's just underneath the chin. This is just to invite a sense of lift, but also finding the chin on the horizon. I'm going to take my thumbs towards the shoulder blade, and I'm going to just give a little invitation here. It was a very slight invitation to take her into the walk. And as Sandra was talking about earlier today, we do kind of have a propensity towards a certain kind of walk in terms of the liftedness of the head. We float the head up. And as she's going, her speed is picking up too, just finding more mobility. So we can stop, Cass. Do you have any observations about your walk?
My hips felt very tight in the beginning, especially my right hip. And so it feels a little bit more lengthened down the front. So just a little lighter.
Feel lighter.
Feel lighter, feel lengthened.
Yeah. And just to close this up, if you wouldn't mind to close your eyes again and see if an image arises. And if it's the same image or if it's morphed or evolved. Is there you don't have to tell me the image, but if there's something that you are aware of in that framing.
I can just say in the beginning, I was seeing a wave spiraling, like crashing and spiraling. So also that spiral image again. And then my image just now was just more of like water, but sort of like flattened,
not so.
not so.
Is there anything, why don't we come over here? Is there anything you'd like to share as a receiver that you're okay with?
I've received bodywork a few many times. It's always, I always think it's going to be easier to release my weight, and it's never easy. So that's something. And also I'm a very shaky person, and so there were definitely moments where I felt my body trying to settle, but then resisting by shaking. So that was something else I noticed.
And I would say I've worked on Cass before. I've done body work with Cass before, and I know that that's something she often experiences. And so I observed it, but didn't call attention to it and just gave time for it to settle. But sometimes when you're doing the body work and that happens, because there just becomes these kind of, it is the integration happening in the nervous system is how I would qualify it. And Sandra, you can add in there if you'd like, and so it just needs time to wait. I think it can be very jarring at the beginning as a practitioner because you think, oh no, I've hurt them, I put them in an awkward situation and this is the reaction, but it really is the integration happening and giving it time and support. And then if it, this work becomes very vulnerable, as we've talked about, the way that we relate and hold on to pain or trauma in the body as it releases, the patterns release. It's a lot to bring presence to, which is why I think the witnessing part is so key, because it's not about me judging or fixing it. It's just about holding space for my partner.
And thank you for the word waiting. It's not a popular word in the English language in terms of our general state of comportment in the world. We're not good at waiting. And it is a practice, and it's really important in the somatic work that you give things time to change.
I wonder if anybody who is observing has questions for either Cass, myself, or Sandra.
A question, maybe a clarification. When we use that process of matching, if I understood correctly, it is actually to tune into or with the energy and the pattern of the person that we are working with, right?
Mm-hmm.
At that point and at that level, if we as a giver of we perceive or we feel something energetically, or we see a pattern, are we supposed to report that information to the receiver, or are we expected or supposed to just let the receiver integrate what he just received and let it unfold naturally, I would say? I have a bit of a confusion and a question mark around my head regarding that.
I think it's a great question, and part of it is in these circumstances when we're teaching the work, we are more open to checking in with, not open to checking in, but to reporting back on the experiences and document it, like, because I was narrating what I was doing. But in a session where I wasn't teaching the work, I wouldn't offer as much verbal description of what I was seeing. Does that make sense? Sandra, why don't you add to this question?
I think you answered it beautifully, and people do learn it through watching and through doing and through listening to the verbal description of the practitioner. So we can get a little bit confused about those inner narratives and the unfolding of the patterns, because we get into the verbal part of it. And when you're actually giving the work, it is nonverbal. So unless there's something in the pattern that is extremely interesting in terms of where you would take this toward the end of the work, toward the end of the session, you wouldn't generally talk about all the patterns that you find or give them all that. You're just working with the information, and it goes by so quickly. But it is a really good question to consider, and part of that question will get answered the more you do this kind of work.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, it could have been possible that Cass's awareness of her of shaking, you call it, of that movement in her body, she could have mentioned that at the end. And at the end, if she wanted to talk a little bit more about that or was curious, I could, guide some ways to think about that. I probably would give a very similar answer of what I said now, which is that's just your body integrating. And if you'll just allow the space and time, then you might discover some change from that. But I would be more about holding the space of witnessing to her observation of herself.
And I don't want to speak too much because other people need a chance here. Wondering about this word integration, I wonder about it a lot. The Feldenkrais work on the table is called functional integration. And I'm reminded that it isn't the body and the mind that's being integrated. Because when people hear the word integration in reference to body work or somatics, they're often thinking, oh, body, mind, integration. We're not considering that we're working with these as separate things. We're working with the whole person. So what on earth is being integrated here? I think of it in light of the rest periods when you move and then you rest, and you have a chance to, I think another word is digest. Digest the movement. You've just in what? You ate the movement and now you're digesting it, huh? Well, you experienced something new, and your body needs time for the nervous system to adjust and for all of the systems of your body to register what you've just done. Perhaps the integration could be explained a little bit through centering, grounding, balance, some of these things coming about. It's not up to us to figure out where Cass's shaking is coming from, by the way, or to fix that. She will have her own epiphanies that might come to her in a dream. And will it be okay if she continues to shake and shake and maybe even shake some more until she shakes it all off? It will be just fine. We're not fixing that.
Thank you.
Are there any other specific questions?
Kelly, I thought it was all a grand flowing dance and a great pas de deux. It was beautiful to watch, and I especially admired how, with a great ease with which you worked from the floor, because that's hard. You have to be able to squat and like to squat, getting down in your hip joints and in your knees and getting up and down from the floor and knowing how to situate the body to do the next movement. And there have been a few practitioners in our work who just love to work from the floor. And I like to see those people flourish in that way of doing things. I'm glad that you still like to work from the floor, though you do great work from the table too. I just want to congratulate you on that. Beautiful lesson.
Thank you, Sandra. Well, why don't we take a short break and then we'll come back in 15 minutes and celebrate our community for this week. All right, see you in a few.